Hello, Facebook land. How is it going tonight? Are you living large? Are you ready for the show tonight? It's going to be a gooder. We're going to have a good time. Come on in. Who's going to be watching? Let's see who is rolling in. Drop it in the comments where you're watching from. Let us know if you can hear and see us okay. And we're going to get this thing rolling. So who is coming? Come on in. All right. So going in. So tonight, guys, we got the share and win contest with Woody's Racing. Tonight, we're going to give away a little Bubba Burgers like pack, right? So we've got like a sweatshirt here. We've got coupons for free Bubba Burgers. Boy, I've tried those Bubba Burgers. They're good. So I've gotten a couple coupons from those guys from Woody's Racing. And man, those are tasty burgers. We're having a good time. So here's what's going on, guys. Jon Ferrian live every Sunday night, 7 p.m. We go live right here on Facebook. We're now sharing it out to YouTube too. By the way, I haven't mentioned that before, but if you go to YouTube, you can see these same episodes on a channel that I built called Live Large Universe. So Live Large Universe is available on YouTube now. Check it out. Tonight, we are going to go live, and what we normally do every week is we talk about things like safety, awareness, education in the snowmobile industry, but overall, we're just trying to do some positive growth of this sport and continue to make it as awesome as it can be. So let me close the music down a little bit and give you a quick rundown. Again, Woody's Racing. So just a big shout out last week. So every other week now, guys, we're doing Fly Racing and then Woody's Racing. So we're giving away prizes just for and sharing the show every single week. And so we last week we had Todd Kramer. So by the way, guys, for anybody who's watching this, you know Todd Kramer is like a power watcher. He's a power sharer. He shares that thing out all over the place. And so he's actually over our 4 episodes. He's won, I think, like 3 times now. So for that reason, I'm actually going to implement what I'm going to call the Todd Kramer rule, right? So here's the Todd Kramer rule. I'm going to make this fun for everybody. I want Todd to still know that his shares are valuable. I appreciate what he's doing. But let's make a new rule and say that every, let's call it 45 days, I'm just going to keep track of the winners and the dates that win. And if you've won in the last 45 days, let's go ahead and give anybody else an opportunity. I'm still going to put your name in the list. I'm going to still give you shout outs for all the shares that you're doing, Todd. But if your name pops up and we have the random number generator and your name pops up and you've won in the last 45 days, we're going to call that the Todd rule because Todd's been winning like crazy. I love it. I love it. But I want to make sure everybody else knows they got a shot at winning this stuff too. So without any further ado, I'm going to drop our display here. Let me find it. And we're going to find Mr. Todd, or not Todd. We just talked about David here. So we got David. How's it going, Mr. Wagner?
It's going. How are you doing?
Good, good. Are you stoked for the show tonight?
I'm excited.
Dude, like I got to tell you, like David Wagner has become one of the biggest Live Large fans out there. He shares the show like crazy. He's always watching it. He's always chiming in with comments. And David, we appreciate your support for the show and what we're trying to do here for the industry. And I'm so excited to have you finally on with your very own episode.
Well, I'm excited, and I appreciate everything you do. It's a great show.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. So Todd's on my mind, man.
You're
so
stuck on Todd.
He's winning. So you're David. I got your name right below you there, so I'm going to keep remembering that, obviously. I apologize. But so David, you and I have gotten to know each other just over Facebook, right? I mean, I don't even know how long it's been. We've been Facebook friends. Do you happen to know? Is it 6 months? Has it been a year? Has it been more or less?
Probably been about 9 months, probably.
Yeah. So we stumbled across each other at some place in time, and we've been enjoying following each other. And you've got this incredible, exciting journey that you're on to go do the Iron Dog race this coming season. And we'll get into all of those details tonight about what a crazy race that is and what a crazy guy you are for trying to tackle all this. We'll talk about all that stuff tonight. But really, really want to make sure that we get a chance to get to know you a little bit. This is that opportunity to kind of who's the guy behind the helmet, who's the lady behind the helmet, depending on the episode. And so I'm just going to tee it up back over to you and just give us a little rundown on your background, where you grew up, you know, maybe what you do for work, family, whatever you think you're comfortable covering tonight. And then we'll circle back to the rest of it.
Well, I live out here in Arnold, California, up in the Sierra. We've got great snowmobiling up here. I grew up in a small town, kind of by where Lyric's from, Kimmer, Wyoming, in southwest Wyoming. I jumped into snowmobiling when I was a couple years old. My dad had a race factory, Rupp snowmobiles, and I kind of got hooked on the whole thing, and moved out to California, got married. I've got two great kids. My daughter's almost 16, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. I think that's a little bit more crazy than Iron Dog is, to be honest with you.
So which is the scariest part, her driving or her dating or her driving to a date?
Probably all of that. I mean, it's I've been thinking maybe I should just move up to Alaska in the middle of nowhere where nobody else is, and live there for the next 5 years with her. So, but no, and then my son, I've got a 24-year-old son, lives down in Dallas, Texas, works for the Aero down there for Southwest. And my wife, I think we've been together since she was 14 years old. I've been married 27 years almost now. And I kind of left Salt Lake City. I had a landscaping business back there. I left Salt Lake and moved out to California and kind of gave up snowmobiling and hunting and everything else, and started chasing the work career like everybody else did. And took until about 15 years ago to jump back into snowmobiling. How sleds had changed, and bought some Hardy Cats and started riding. Now we're riding Polarises, and last year I think I rode 81 days.
Nice.
Put 30-some hundred miles on snowmobile, so I love riding.
Yeah, no, it's such a fun, exciting sport. It ends up being kind of a way of life, and literally, it's this, just like live large, right? It's like it's a lifestyle, it's a mindset that you're in, and snowmobiling's not much different when you're really hardcore into it, like so many of our fans are. So I always see this name pop up, and I got to call it out. Is Tia Smith is one of the few people that watches this show every single week, doesn't miss an episode, but as far as I know, probably has never been on a snowmobile. She's from Southern California, not probably, she's in your state, but I can't remember. Santa Barbara, I think, is where she's at, but she's on here every week. I see she chime in too. So, hey, Tia, really appreciate you jumping on and watching again. So.
Well, snowmobiling, like you say, it's a whole family thing. How many other things can you do and have a family together and have a good time, and everybody enjoys it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and on that topic, like literally just today, for anybody who follows me on social media outside of even just these shows, is today was our big Ferrian family fun ride. So I started this probably like 4 years ago. It was through the local clubs, and then kind of, using it as a tool to get people to join the clubs, is setting up a beginner level ride for anybody. Like every time we go out, almost always there's somebody who it's their very first ever snowmobile ride, and we bring those folks out. We got families with kids, we got anybody and everybody, including experienced riders who are there to help and support and enjoy their day also. Sometimes they don't have somebody else to ride with, and they join us as well. But we had such an incredible time out in the mountain today. And again, it's not with the idea of having to pick the craziest line and do the craziest stuff in order to have fun. It's all about that camaraderie. It's all about that support, pushing each other a little further than we were the last time we were out.
Right. It's, even out here, I started riding again, and I take people out riding. We'd ride my machines for a couple days, and then next thing you know, they're out buying used machines. They're calling, hey, can you run to Manteca with me to meet up with a guy in the parking lot to look at these sleds? And then, the next year they're down buying new snowmobiles.
Yep. No, that's what happens. So, even our friend Katie Fisher, who just commented, she was on our ride today. She says, amazing ride leader. So I'm assuming she's talking about me, but I won't assume too hard. But Katie's one of those too that, she's been on some kind of older Arctic Cats from like early 2000s. And as she's been getting more and more excited, and her husband have been, on the rides, they just picked up a new snowmobile this year as well. And so it's been a great experience. And before the time passes here, I've got to shout it out. I'm David. This is your episode, but I'm going to steal it for 1 minute. You ready for this?
You got it.
Dude, like my wife killed it today. Dude, she rode, never seen her ride before. She was pulling lines and side hill maneuvers and avoiding drainages. Like, oh my God, I just was like, she cried. She was so happy. She was so excited about how well she did. She cried. It was so awesome. So proud of her. So anyway, that was my moment of fame. I want to steal, and I want to give a big shout out to my wife, Edith. Love you. You did awesome today.
Well, I don't know about you, but my most favorite person to go riding with is my wife.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love going riding with the guys that like to go crawl the hills and everything else, but it's fun. Just probably, I bet probably 60% of my riding on down lower 48's done with her. and she goes and hangs with the guys, and I love having her there.
Oh, that's awesome. It's one of the things here's what I say out loud is I love doing what I love with those I love, right? And so
Exactly.
having my wife there on my side when I'm out riding is like a dream come true for me for sure. So,
Right.
all right. Well, we better get back into a little bit of your background. So let's talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit briefly in your intro about snowmobiling, but let's go back. Like when you first were snowmobiling, I'm just looking at you, David, and you're not exactly a spring chicken, as they say, right?
You're right.
What?
I finally admitted it. I turned 50 years old this year. I didn't want to really admit that, but
I'm
Todd
40.
Palin tells me, you're only as old as you feel, and I think I'm about 24.
There you go. Perfect. So let's go back to your early riding careers. You said when you were a kid you rode a little while and stuff too, but what snowmobiles did you start out on way back as a kid? What were the models that you were riding back then?
Well, probably the first snowmobile I ever really remember was a Rupp Nitro.
Okay.
We were up there in Kemmer, Wyoming. It's probably the first time I ever went 100 miles an hour on a snowmobile. I was sitting on the front, holding on to the handlebars, and my dad was screaming across the lake with me.
Nice.
Frozen lake, obviously. And then after that, he got into the Snowjet snowmobiles, which then turned into Kawasaki. And so when we lived in Wyoming, that's what we sold. So then were the sleds I was riding. I think one of the first sleds of my own was I think it was a Yardman or something like that. It was a little sled that kind of looked like a Skidoo.
Nice.
That was the first sled I had.
That's awesome. So nice job with the old sleds, and it's amazing. Did you do like I did as a kid, and you worked on them as much as you rode them, or more, probably?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up with my dad having a snowmobile shop, and pick up our sleds from a place called Recreational Sports up in Idaho Falls. So we'd go up there and go to meetings, and I'd get out of school to go to training meetings on how to work on sled. Then we head over to Starting Line Performance, and I'd run around the warehouse there when my dad was loading up parts and that when Jim Noble had just started the place.
Yep. That's awesome. Nice. Cool. And so then over the years you've evolved, and now you've got a small herd of Polarises that you're running, right? So you got your mountain sleds that you ride for you and your wife.
I
and
do.
Then you have several sleds we're going to talk a little bit about too. We'll get more into the details there too, but you've gone full on Polaris. Like, was there something specific about Polaris at some point in time that made you fall in love?
I think it was the underdog. When I moved out here, everybody was riding Skidoos and, Arctic Cats. Like I said, I bought a couple old Cats back in Park City, Utah, and brought them out here. It was a good deal. That's why I got them. And
Nice.
Everybody else was riding Skidoos, and I just didn't want to be like everybody else. So I started riding Polarises and started dealing with all their problems, and just stuck with it. I think last year I got 4 miles out of one of them before I blew it up. Out of my new 850, but I've just kind of stuck with Polarises. Up the Iron Dog up there, it seems to be the dominating sled up there, and so that's what we jumped on up there.
Nice. Well, speaking of the Iron Dog, let's tee this up a little bit, and then I'll turn it back over to you to explain it to us. So, for those who maybe have never even heard of the Iron Dog, and they first see the name Iron Dog, especially the year coming up 2020. And right away it's like, what is this, like a dog mushing race? Is it like it's up because again the name versus what it is, like, just intuitively maybe doesn't make sense. And so why don't you give us a little bit about the history of the Iron Dog, at least as you know it, right? I mean, you've only gotten involved in it the last few years, but I'm assuming you've been watching it and tracking it for years.
I've been watching it for a lot of years, yeah.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of the history. Like, when did it, the details, right? If not, just skim over it. But, like, when did it start? Kind of what was the origins of it? Why did it even go in the beginning? And then, then we'll go into some details about the specifics of the race, right? The terrain, the mileage, all that. We'll cover that second. But just overview the history of Iron Dog and maybe where the name came from, if you know. So
I'm not sure where the name came from, but it started in 1984. Up there in Alaska. Jon Ferrian was the first guy to win the race from Big Lake to Nome. And I mean, think about the kind of sleds they had in 1984. And to get 1,000 miles out of them sleds, and it wasn't like racing today. I mean, carried your stuff with you. You MacGyvered your machine to get through. They didn't have planes chasing them and everything else to bring parts in. And that's where it's continually went through There's one year I think that they didn't run up there in Alaska because they didn't have any snow. Basically, the weather was kind of crappy. Really down the lower 48 didn't really get well known until Sarah Palin was running for vice president, and her husband Todd. I mean, he's won the thing numerous times, and then they start talking about Iron Dog and the first dude, and I think that's where a lot of people down here started hearing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. And so the tie-in with the Palin family is really cool too. How did you first get to know the Palins? Have you known them for years because you spent a bunch of time in Alaska, or
no? It's just been a couple years. When I decided I wanted to run the Iron Dog, Todd was the guy who had won the thing, him and Davis. Okay. So basically, I chased him down, and one day he called and we just started talking about it. We spent about an hour on the phone, and he says, well, next time you're up, let's get together. And just one thing's led to another. And, he has a lot of cool pointers and everything else. And he wasn't going to run this year, and then he threw his name in. So it's going to be exciting to be able to race against him. That's a really cool thing.
That is really cool. So, yeah, it's interesting what a small world it is, and how, so many aspects of the world, if you pay attention, get tied back into snowmobiling. As far as I'm concerned, snowmobiling is the center of the universe, right? I mean,
it is. But like you say, it's such a tight group of people, right? Yeah. It don't matter if you're in Salt Lake City, getting to Brett Rasmussen talking about Iron Dog and standing around talking with him, or how everybody's just kind of tied together. We were at the snowmobile show in Salt Lake, and some guy came up and says, hey, that's a poster of you and Todd Palin. I know Todd. And so it was just pretty cool how it just links together. And it's such a small world, but it seems like snowmobile people just stay linked up and take care of each other.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So, well, let's dive into a little bit more about the race. So now we know a little bit of the history, kind of when it's been going on. But again, let's, for anybody who thinks snowmobile race or any kind of a race, typically a race in their mind is, let's go to the motocross or let's go to NASCAR or whatever it is. And, it's over a relatively short period of time. Maybe it's, minutes, maybe it's hours, but it's rare that you get into this kind of a race. And so kind of just, paint a picture of the Iron Dog race for what it is for somebody who maybe has never even heard of it before.
Well, first of all, the board that's put this race together this year, they're amazing. I'm on Woodbury and Roger Brown and Dixon. They worked so hard to put together a whole new loop this year. I mean, it's running completely backwards. It usually runs out of Big Lake or Willow, and it ends up in Fairbanks. This year, it's taking off.
Here, like, how many miles is the Iron Dog race?
2,500 miles.
2,500 miles. Let's just stop and think. Let's absorb that for a minute, right? I personally, mountain riding, like, I think the most miles I ever put on in a season ever when I lived in Minnesota was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 4,000 miles on a snowmobile over an entire season. And let's be honest, I was 19 years old. I probably didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. Maybe I did. There was a fine line there where I met Edith and or not. But like that first season I bought my first sled, like I was just like riding and riding. I'd ride that thing to work. I'd ride it every night. I'd ride it every weekend. And somehow I got 4,000 miles on it, which was an extreme amount of miles for an average rider for the season, right?
Right.
And now mountain miles, I ride maybe 50-ish, 45 to 50 days a year, and 1,500, maybe 2,000 miles in a season if I'm lucky. 1,500 is pretty average. And so now we're talking in one race, 2,500 miles, which is probably double the amount of miles that the average person's riding every season.
Well, and then you break it down. That's 5 days. So that's 500 miles a day.
500 miles a day.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be this year when you take off from Fairbanks, you're going to be running on the river a long ways. And for me, I mean, being from Minnesota, ice and that's no big thing for you. Yeah. Leaving the mountains up here and jumping on ice was a whole different experience for me. So you'll be running on the rivers. So it's going to be a race the first 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
You get to Nome. You leave Nome and head back to White Mountain and Ruby and that, and get down into the burn area. There could be 50 to 100 miles, nothing but that you go ride on. When you're hitting the river, there's going to be open water that you're going to have to cross. I mean, that's the way to go. I mean, you have no way around it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have really watched the Iron Dog, but if you look back at watch their videos on YouTube. There's a guy named Randy that lives up in Island Park up there. He runs the Bear and Wolf place, and they were on the Bering Sea and just buried their sleds in 3 feet of water that over the ice out there, and ended up walking a long ways in waist deep water just to get out of there.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a little bit of everything. You know, not about a snowmobile race. I thought of something like an oval track up in West Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You know, or the I-500 down through the bar pits and things like that. But this is a little bit of everything, and just when you think you're prepared for it, it's going to throw something else at you.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so, you know, again, for people all over the country who watch this, you know, like in the mountains, we ride mountain sleds. Sometimes people buy crossover sleds. In the, you know, the center of the country and the east side of the country, people ride the short track sleds. And so, you know, what kind of sleds are you guys riding at the Iron Dog? Are you riding like shorties? Or are you riding like crossovers?
We're riding shorties. I'm riding switchbacks, 134s, XCRs, 600s.
I'm going to make fun of you a little bit because you're a mountain rider and you just called the switchback a shorty, and the switchback is not a shorty. For the real true coaster, that's a crossover sled, which is like a mid-length sled, right? So a shorty in my world is a 120, 121, right? And so you're on what, a 136, or how long is it?
Yeah, 136, 134. Yeah. Sorry, it's a 134, and it's for me it's short. I go from that chaos of 155.
Oh, I know.
Over to this. And, you know, the amazing part is I went to pick that sled up the other day when I was up there in Alaska. We were riding. I went to pick this thing up, and it weighs 400 and some pounds, almost 500 pounds, you know, and I think my chaos is just under 400 pounds. You know, it's a crazy, the sled's just a total different sled that I'm used to.
Yeah, and you kept the full width ski stance, because what's the ski stance on those things? Was there like a 38 inch or 36 inch? Or?
I'm not sure what the ski stance is on it, but yeah, we kept it just the way it was. You know, you don't change out your pipes or cans or anything like that up there. You know, you beef up your suspension, and fortunately the guy I'm riding with, Pat Daniels, is an awesome mechanic, and he's been able to put together some real good shock deals for us.
Nice. And so you're on kind of these, you know, switchback snowmobiles, you're racing 2,500 miles. And so, like, you know, the terrain, we talked about it, right? So you're going to, you know, part of it is a riverbed, and you put studs on these machines. Again, for a Western rider, I don't even know what studs on a machine is. So describe to everybody, I know what it is from the East Coast, the Midwest, you know, but like tell everybody, what are you doing to the track to give you that extra traction?
The best part is they're Woodies, what we have. So that's a good thing for you.
Everybody confuses. It's actually two different companies. So Woody's Racing is actually a snowcross race team. That's an Arctic Cat race team, and they're Woody's with an IES at the end. Woody's Traction Products is the company you're talking about, right? Which again, I get that confusion all the time. They were with a YS at the end, so Woody's with a Y at the end there. So, but yeah, very similar names.
So yeah, we have, they're basically stuff. I mean, they look like bolts that are cut off and ran through your track, and has a nut on one side and a big head on the other side, and it grabs traction kind of like studs do in tires.
Yeah.
And in your car tires, the carbides on the front are a lot thicker, longer, and it's a whole different thing. Like I said, you go jump on ice on your long track out there, and it slides everywhere. The machine, when you grab a handful of throttle, it goes. When you grab the brakes, it comes to a stop.
Yeah, no, it's amazing the difference. The snowmobile that has those traction products on it from Woody's race, you know, your Woody's traction products is the studs, the carbides. Like, it's amazing what the machine will do on those conditions compared to a traditional snowmobile. Usually, you grab throttle or grab brake on the ice, and you're just spinning or you're sliding or whatever.
Right.
It does make a big difference. And so, you know, 2,500 miles, again, you're running rivers, some open water. So have you had the honor of doing any water skipping yet? Have you done some of that yet, or no?
No, not yet.
Not that you'll admit to, right?
Right. I mean, you know, that's the thing about up there in Iron Dog right now. I mean, you got to be responsible up there riding. And, you know, if you go out and start ripping things up and things like that right now, it just makes Iron Dog look bad. So, you know, without a lot of snow and that up there, the practicing down around Big Lake and that right now is pretty limited.
Yep. Nope, absolutely. And so terrain, miles, like it's just crazy the all the things that are going on in that race and 2,500 miles. And so what would you, based on the winning times previous years like Todd Palin, what is the average speed over 2,500 miles that the winning team typically travels?
Around 40 miles an hour,
Okay.
50 miles an hour. Like I said, it all depends on years, and this
Yeah.
isn't a typical year because it's totally backwards. And there's 500 more miles added onto it this year. Usually, it's right around 2,000 miles.
Yeah, but there's some parts of the trip where it's probably very technical. You're trying to navigate just similar to a mountain sled, and then there's other times where it's just balls to the walls, full throttle, and you're probably doing 100 plus miles an hour, right?
You get down on the river, you're running 100 miles an hour. You get down into some trees and gulches and things like you could be going 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago when I was up there, we were screaming through some willow trees and things like that. And it's a whole different world for me when
Yeah.
you start running down through these trees. But Pat was running 70 miles an hour down through these turns and that. And it's incredible the speed that they do run up there.
That's awesome. And so I'm going to ask you this question, but before you answer it, we're going to pause and do a quick, mini commercial break here. But I'm going to ask you the question is, what's your strategy, the tortoise or the hare? Are you the fast runner or that's going to make it quick, or are you going to be the tortoise and slow and steady wins the race? So don't answer yet. Let me answer your question in just a minute. So in the meantime, I want to remind everybody, we got the share and win contest going on tonight. We're going to have the Bubba Burgers prize pack going on with shirts, free burgers, that kind of thing. And then Mr. David Wagner, you've got a special bonus surprise tonight for anybody who is willing to share the show out tonight for this week's episode. David's throwing in additional prizes. So we're not going to have just one winner this week. We're going to have two winners. And David, what are you throwing into the prize pool?
We're going to throw you. Oh, you went for a twist.
Wow, look at that.
We'll throw you in a Team 11 Iron Dog shirt or sweater.
Awesome.
And we'll have your name put on it.
Wow.
And we'll send it out to you.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So anybody who's watching now, make sure you share out the show, and you're going to get in not only on the prize pack for the Bubba Burgers, which are super yummy, and you also now got a chance to get in on the sweet new sweatshirt, similar to the one that you're wearing, right? The one you're wearing is the same model,
Exact
basically.
same thing. We just got them off the press day before yesterday.
Yep. And if it can make you look good, just think how it'll look on everybody else.
If it looks good on me, it will look great on anybody.
Exactly. So, all right. So, what's your strategy? Is it the tortoise or the hare? What are you going to go for?
Probably the tortoise.
Yep. Slow and
I think, they call it the dummy dust up there, and they're saying there's going to be a lot of pileups in the first day out there on the river because people are wanting to run fast.
Yeah.
My strategy is we just want to stay steady and keep going. We want a clean race. That's the big thing. If we get into Nome without breaking anything and only spending a little bit of time wrenching on our sleds, we're far ahead right there.
Yeah. Well, and you think about, what percentage, I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm going to throw it out there is, what percentage of people who enter the race actually finish the race on average? Is it 50%? Is it more or less?
It's a little around 50 to 40%. Like I said, depends on the year, but it's an average about 50%.
And so we're talking about a grueling, incredible 2,500 race where only, if we're lucky, 50% of the people are even going to finish the race, right? And
15 teams.
Yeah, and so when you say people may not finish the race, what typically is the issues that they're having? Are they, smashing, crashing, mechanical breakdowns from wide open throttle runs? Like, talk us through some of the issues that you've heard of and seen over the years.
Well, mostly mechanical breakdowns. Right? Odds has scratched a few times because of that. There's some guys have got hurt last year. Some guys broke their legs, so they were out, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly mechanical breakdown. I mean, I used to hear there's tough and then there's Alaska tough. And these guys up there, I mean, they ride. And mostly physically is not going to break them down. It's the sled happening to break down for them to quit.
Yep. That's crazy. So just like things are just not working. So I think, your tortoise and the hare strategy is sometimes the hare is going to race fast, but has a chance of breaking. Where the tortoise, you got more chance of finishing the race, because if you finish the race, you're in the race. If you don't finish,
Right.
you're not in it, right?
Well, you know, nobody. This is where I'm at. Nobody from the lower 48's ever finished this race, let alone won it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, just finishing it, being from where I'm at, is already a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just ending the race and being able to finish it is going to be to your point, it's kind of, a new record, if you will, or a new stat that's out there that someone from the lower 48 actually has entered and finished the race, it sounds like, right?
Even as old as I am, that's the thing, you know. I mean, you're racing against a lot of these guys. They're 22, 23 years old, and they still, they have no fear. You know, they haven't cracked enough to worry about it, you know. And so that's a huge thing. Even the age difference you're going against up there.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Wow. So let me look through my notes here. So we've talked about the history of the race. We've talked about the race. Anything else on the race itself that we want to highlight that you think before? Because I think the next thing I want to go into is, what are you doing to your sleds to potentially modify them, if at all? Like maybe that's part of it is, anything else with the race? And then are there any modifications you're making to those sleds to make them competitive?
Well, everybody's got their secrets up there.
Yeah.
And you know, the cool thing, I left the rookie meeting up there, and everybody's pretty open. But there's always one or two little things that they don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
But you know, your sleds are, you can reinforce stuff and do a few mods to the suspension and things like that. Basically, they're a stock sled, stock 600 sled.
Yep.
And you know, probably after this year, after it, next year there'll be more secrets that I'll figure out. But right now, they're basically some reinforcements and change out the suspension, and there we go. Add some bags to it. We have extra gas tanks on the sides, saddle bags on it, 3 gallons each.
Yeah.
So that helps get to another checkpoint if you start running low on fuel there. But that's basically the things. The one thing that I think is going to be the toughest thing for me is gauntlets. Having your hands in them bags all the time is a pretty tough deal. I'm used to pulling my hand out and grabbing the bar to switch around and that, and it just don't happen that easy.
Yeah, yeah, but the type of riding you're doing, though, I mean, I've over the years, you're going to come to appreciate it because, it drives my next question, which is around weather. But like riding with gauntlets in like extreme cold weather is a lifesaver, right? And
Right.
type of riding you're doing, you're going to want to have your hands on the bars at all times. You're not going to be like doing a whole lot of goofing around with the mountain bar or the center bar or anything like
Right.
that. And but let's talk about like weather conditions during this race. Like, when is the race again? Is it January, February? When is it coming up?
It starts February 16th in Fairbanks.
Okay.
And goes to Nome 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday being Nome, and then you finish down in Willow on Saturday.
Something else just clicked in my head too. It's like, what is daylight versus nighttime happening that time of year up there too? Are they still in like a 24-hour nighttime scenario? Or
No,
light do you have?
I think that what is it? December 21st. What's the longest day of the year?
21st, roughly, of December. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. So it's starting to go backwards now. When I was up there a couple weeks ago, it was still dark at 10 in the morning, and by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was dark. You know, at 2 o'clock, it seemed like just sunrise is what it felt like, and an hour later, it felt like sunset. But you're back to halfway normal hours by then.
So by the time the race comes, you're back to like having at least relatively normal daylight hours. So
Right.
But let's talk about weather though. Like, what's the weather conditions up there like that time of the year as far as temperatures go?
This year,
Okay.
it's a weird year up there. I mean, still the rivers haven't froze up all the way yet. It should be, last year when we were up at the finish in Fairbanks, I think it was 30 below then.
Yeah.
It's out there on the tundra. It can snow a foot of snow, but it all blows away. So you just got this little thing of ice and a little bit of snow blown around out there.
So I'm gonna share a personal story that I know you'll be able to relate to, because the fact that you're in California, you ride in California, is not that much different than me being in Washington State, but dealing with the cold weather. So here's a story I have to share. So I'm originally from Minnesota, and I know all about riding in cold weather. And 10 below, 20 below, 30 below, you still go ride because you know what? It's wintertime. There's snow on the ground. You're going to take advantage of it.
Right.
But the thing I've learned over the years, coming from Minnesota, is that I take it for granted is that you learn how to dress for it, right? And
Right.
it's
Layers.
dressing for it. It's not even the layers. It's any
Oh,
exposed skin anywhere, right? Like if you have exposed skin on your cheeks, your nose, like so many goggles out there don't have a nose guard off of the bridge of the
right.
nose. You know, your helmet and your goggle, you might have even around your temples a very thin, eighth of an inch line where you're not covered completely. And all of those things, when you're talking about 30 below weather, I'm going to share this story with you. So I brought a crew of people from Washington State down to Island Park, West Yellowstone, Idaho, right, for a
Right.
snowmobile trip. And I bring my snowmobile gear with. I bring what I bring is called a no fog mask, which is a neoprene mask that covers the bridge of my nose, under my goggles, all the way up over my ears, and it basically covers absolutely everything over my head. Then my goggles plugs the rest of the hole, and so I'm 100% covered up. And that thing covers over your neck, and then you got like you're just covered, right?
Right.
So we're riding 20 below, no big deal. And here's all my buddies from Washington, like they're out riding, and I'm not paying attention because I'm like, they're snowmobilers, they know how to dress, right? I don't have to babysit them. That first day, a bunch of them came back with frostbite really bad that day, and like I had one guy with a big giant blister on his nose and his cheeks, and he had holes in his cheeks for a few days after that and stuff too. And it just like it helped me understand what I was taking for granted is that there's special techniques to be able to get ready for it. And in some of these races, I've seen people literally, like I've watched our friend Rebecca Charles
Right.
and those guys, they're getting up there and they're doing face taping and stuff too. So talk us through about your physical preparation for the race after I've probably given away all the secrets already, but what are you doing to prep for it to make sure you're not exposed to the air?
Duct tape.
Duct tape. Talk about it. Let's talk about it. What are you doing with it?
So you end up where you're talking, the areas that aren't covered by your goggles, now you end up duct taping your face. I guess there's medical tape now that's a little softer
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're using. There was a joke at the rookie meeting. You can buy it now for $7 a roll, or you can buy it out in the villages for $100 a roll.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's duct taping your face that it's all covered up like that. As far as clothing, we got climb clothing and doing the layers stuff is what we're using. They have us carry extra socks, extra long johns and gloves and everything else you have to have with you. But
Yeah.
as far as physically getting ready for this, I started out in July when I decided I wanted to do this, and started jumping to the gym for an hour and a half every day. And the first week, I thought I was going to die. By the second week, I knew I was dead. And but I've dropped 30 pounds,
Nice.
and physically, that's what I've been trying to get my legs in shape and everything else for that. The cold, like I said, I grew up in Wyoming, so the cold really doesn't bother me
Yeah.
as bad as some people probably.
Yep. Wow. I'm just trying to think of what else we need to talk about around the race and stuff too. Is there things, if you know of anything, just jump in and go for it. I'm just kind of looking through my notes here of, anything as far as preparation, riding.
Well,
Go
we're,
ahead.
we practice. I leave here the 5th of January. I'll go up there and we'll ride 400 miles a day for
Yeah.
probably 15 days. Then I'm going to come home for a couple days to hang out with my wife and my kids, and then take off and go back up. But just the prepping for the race. It's kind of like Rebecca's over in Canada or wherever right now, prepping for the race that she's doing. But we'll ride probably 5,000 miles just practicing for the race. Hopefully, wear out 2 snowmobiles and get ready that way.
So, anybody who's a hardcore snowmobiler, like you're talking about putting on 6,000 miles just on practice sleds before you put on the 2,500 miles
Right.
on regular sleds, just to go out there and get ready for it, right? And so you're going to have what 6, 7, 8, 9,000 miles this season on snowmobiles, like
Easily, yeah.
that's
I mean,
a
I want to ride 1,000 miles back down here in the mountains and in Utah on that, But yeah, I figured this year probably somewhere around 10,000 miles, And I'm fortunate. The guy I'm with, Pat, up there, he's put together one hell of a plan to get me into the Alaskan riding up there, and his practice and that starting in January. Put a lot of miles on.
Yeah. So Katie Fish watching has got a comment here that I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to translate it from my own perspective. Is her question is, how excited is your family for you? My question is, how pissed off is your wife at you for taking something like this on?
I am very fortunate. My wife, my kids are so supportive about this. I've been watching this race for a long time,
Yeah.
and when I finally decided to do it this year, my wife was like for it. I says, you know what this is going to cost? She says, doesn't matter. It's your dream. You just need to go do it. And,
That's
you know,
awesome.
my daughter and my son, my daughter's birthday's in January, and she says, hey, it's your dream. You need to go up there and do this. So, I mean, I am so fortunate to have the support that I have with my family. It's my wife's like my biggest cheerleader right now. And
That's fantastic. It sounds to me like you're living large up there and making the most of every day, making a difference in the world and killing it, right?
that's what I'd like to think. And that's you know, don't get too many chances to chase your dreams. And, you know, I'd rather go and try it and fail at it than one whole life. What if I would have done it, you know, and getting to be 70 years old, wondering if I could have made the Iron Dog. I just can't live with that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so maybe you've already pre-answered the question, but I prepped you for this question ahead of time is, you know, what the hell are you thinking? What makes you think you can do this, pull it off successfully? Like, you know, and you haven't even given me the answer yet either. I've prepped you for this question. I've told you, like, I'm going to throw this one at you as a curveball, but I'm going to let you think about it a little bit. But, you know, for all of us watching, we're all thinking, like, man, why would somebody do this? And you kind of already talked about the fact that it's your dream and all that. But outside of that, like, what makes you think you can pull this off? I believe you can do it. I know you believe you can do it. But what's the psychological process that you're going through that is giving you that desire, that passion, that push to believe that you can do it and know that you will do it?
Well, there's been days I've wanted to quit. I can tell you that. I mean, you know, you think you have one budget, then that gets blown and you're up to another one. And then you're sitting there looking at God, you know, you're from the lower 48, you're 50 years old, and you think you're going to go up there and win this race. That's been a mind game over and over since I made the decision. And finally, probably about a month ago, I just decided there was no option. And I was finishing the race, and I needed to knock that thought out of my head. And I don't know. I just believe that it's what I want to do, and I'm fully capable of doing it. So I'm the only one that can hold myself back from doing it.
Exactly. And that's the answer to most things in life, right? Is again, our friend Katie here, she's did a hashtag for you. Maybe you can steal this if you haven't already. It says hashtag Dave's Dream.
I love that.
You can take it, steal it. I'm sure she'll let you have it. But hashtag Dave's Dream. But you're right. It's that ability and that belief in your life that, you know, I can do this, right? And, you know, the little bit of private conversation that you and I had, I can tell you just my own opinion, my own perspective about you, David, that I've never even met you before, but the little bit I've talked to you is that, you know, you got the lucky horseshoe up your butt, or have you been doing plans in your life, right? Like we talked about that on the phone, right? It's like, you know, to be able to do this, the financial constraint that's there. I mean, you're buying multiple snowmobiles, you're traveling back and forth, you still have your snowmobiles at home. I mean, you got you got a lot going on there, but that what you just talked about, that believing in yourself, and visualizing it, right? I guarantee you, I'm going to say this out loud and you're going to shake your head yes, is that's the way you've lived your whole life to get to where you are today, and to have the success with your family, the love that you have in your family, the success you've had in your career and your jobs over the years to be able to put you in a financial position to do this. Like, you're already doing what you're talking about, which is believe in yourself, know you can do it, visualize it, and then just take it head on. Like, why not, right? Like, instead of saying why shouldn't I, or why should I, like, it's why shouldn't I, right?
Exactly. You know, one of my favorite things is I'd rather try something great and fail at it than try nothing at all and succeed.
Yeah,
And
you'll never do it if you never try, right?
exactly. I mean, and you know, it doesn't matter if it's a race, your family, a career, or whatever it is. I think, think outside the box. You know, it's putting the people that are in positions in life where you're at in your life. You know, it's I had lots of people tell me, "Oh, you're crazy to do this," but Todd and them are like, "Hey, you can do this."
Oh, I know,
You know,
right?
and so when you take somebody, you take advice from people are where you want to be in life, not where you don't want to be.
That's awesome. So do you know somebody named Dan Wilcock? Wilcock? Dan?
I do.
So Dan's asking a question here. He goes, David, do you want to mentor me for the Iron Dog? Question mark. Currently live in Palmer.
Well, we'll see how I go this year. I mean, here's the thing about the Iron Dog, and to me, it's not a year race. I want to do this next year. I mean, the Iron Dog is such an amazing thing of what it does for people in Alaska. The villages and things like that, the people you get to see when you go in there, they look so forward to see people. I mean, I want to be a part of the Iron Dog as long as I can walk. I mean, if it's not racing, I want to do something to help with it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I think we've talked through almost everything. The last thing I have on my list here is your sponsors. Let's talk a little bit about your sponsors and the people who are supporting you through this. You've already talked about your family and how supportive they are, emotionally and all that kind of stuff, right?
Here's my biggest support right here, but she doesn't want to come in.
Love it. Hey.
Hey.
That's my biggest sponsor right there, and it's we've got Starting Line Performance, Hatcher Pass, California Customs, so many friends here in California that's thrown little things here and there to go towards it. Starting out in something like this, I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, it's crazy what a race would cost to go do this, but to get a company like Polaris or somebody like that to buy into somebody that has never done it, when they have Chris Mike up there, they get free rides and everything, they've earned it, and so there's just so many people. I can't even thank everybody, but the sponsors like Starting Line and California Custom, Hatcher Pass, and Climb for getting us some of the equipment that we have is just a great deal.
That's awesome.
And like I said, my family, God, just for putting the dream in my mind that I could go do this is a huge thing. I mean, that's a belief in finishing this race, is having that belief right there too.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have lots of people watching the show. They're going to be cheering you on. And let's talk a little bit about how do people watch this race? Like, is it on TV? Is it a webcast? Is there streaming of the race over the race in February? How can people follow and watch the race?
So you can go to Iron Dog snowmobile race, and through there you can click in there. There's places that you'll be able to follow us on GPS, so you can see how fast we're running and where we're at. On their site too, they have KTUU News up there that does daily reports that you'll be able to watch, and through my own thing, Iron Dog Team 11, Daniels and Wagner. My wife will be keeping up on what's going on there. Joe Gill, who has High Octane Films down here in California, we're going to be sending him some footage off GoCams and things like that, so he's able to post it up there. It's not like world streaming on ESPN or anything.
Yeah. Yep. Nope. Sounds good. And then you had also mentioned too that the Iron Dog. You had mentioned on the phone with me earlier that the Iron Dog race itself is doing some kind of a raffle to just raise money for the event itself. Can you tell us a little bit about that and tell us what people can get in on?
Yeah, so what we have is raffle tickets, and $60 a piece, and you get a chance to win a 2019 Switchback or a new Dodge truck, or there's some money, some tires, some different things like that. It's a raffle. They're only doing 4,000 tickets. And if you're interested, you can message me and I can to you, or you can even get a hold of Iron Dog themselves, and they can do PayPal and do it that way.
Nice, nice. And so how do I win my Ram truck again? I need to know how to win a new Ram truck.
You can get a hold of me.
All right.
At Iron Dog Team 11, or go to my Facebook, David Wagner.
Okay.
And I can hook you up with a ticket. We can do PayPal, Venmo, or whatever, and they're $60 a piece.
Good. Well, hook me up. I'll take one. You got one sold just from the show already. I'll take one. I need a new truck for sure. It's a 2015. It's getting old. It's got like over 70,000 miles on it now. It's getting all wore out.
Well, got to keep up with them new sled decks every year, don't you?
Well, but then guess what? My next door neighbor, I noticed, just must have got himself a new Christmas present. There's a brand new Dodge Ram heavy duty sitting in his driveway, and now his is newer and nicer than mine. And we can't have that, right? It's like the Joneses. You got to keep
Oh,
up.
you can't get caught up in that. That gets you in trouble every time. So what kind of snowmobile does he have?
He's riding an Arctic Cat, an 18 Arctic Cat. So.
And you got a Skidoo?
Oh, I've got Skidoo and Arctic Cat. I've got a 19 Alpha 1, and I got a couple of Skidoo 850s.
Now that Alpha 1, my dad's 74 years old. And last year for Christmas, we got him an Alpha 1 for Christmas. And nice. I think he put 1,000 miles on it last year, and he loves that sled.
That's awesome. Nice. So somebody dropped something in the comments here, which reminded me of something, which is maybe going to help remind you of something. I don't know if you touched on it or not, but let's talk about some of the safety gear that you're going to have with you on this race that you're packing with you, right, including your new 208 radio. So let's chat about that for a minute.
Oh yeah, 208 radios. Huge supporter there. They gave us our radios this year, and just been incredible. I've used them around here riding. They're incredible radios, but we have to have a sleeping bag that's good to 20 below with us. We have to have 2,000 calories of emergency food. I hope I don't have to eat. You have some tools, you have flares, you have an option of a sat phone or having a spot, never lost on there. You have extra layers of clothing. You have Arctic stoves. Basically everything you would need to be able to survive for one night out there until you got help.
That's awesome.
Regardless of where you're at out there, you're still a ways away from anybody, especially running night. You don't have your planes chasing you. So an SOS could take you a while before you get a helicopter to get you.
Yeah, it's not like you're in downtown Seattle or, San Francisco or something, right?
Well, you look at Rebecca. Now there's a race. I mean, she's out there in the middle of nowhere out there. And I mean, it's not like there's these villages all over Alaska is either. So, I mean, she's running an incredible race.
Yeah, so that's the race you're referring to, for everybody who doesn't know, is Cane's Quest. So
right.
Cane's Quest race is coming up, and Rebecca Charles has ridden the Iron Dog race a few times in the past, and she's now, for the first time, trying to join an all-women team up in northern Canada. Is it Newfoundland or somewhere like that?
Yeah.
And it's a giant race, very similar to the Iron Dog, but some would argue maybe even more intense than the Iron Dog potentially. So
it probably is more intense, but she's just, there's no other way to put it than she's just badass. I mean, she's an incredible person, and the thing she's done for Iron Dog too is just incredible.
Yep.
So
awesome. So
our buddy have you all watch us, follow us. I mean, I would like to keep up with you when we're out there and let you know what we got going on out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you got something going on in your Facebook page and you share it, just tag me in it, and I'll try to help share it out too a little bit and keep you getting cheered on.
Okay.
Sounds good. So your buddy Joe Gill says thanks for the shout out, Dave. So he's watching the show tonight too. So
Joe's a great guy. Like you said, it's everybody that I don't think I've really ran into a jerk that rides a snowmobile. And seriously, everybody is, it's a family is what it is. It's just, I think that's an important part is everybody's just tight. It's what America used to be is what these snowmobilers are.
Yeah, it is a really cool community. So, all right. Well, I think we've covered everything I want to cover tonight. We're getting close to running out of time anyway. We're at 55 minutes into the show, which I think we've burned up enough of these nice people's time. But one last call out for you, David, if there's anything you want to talk about yet tonight before we're done.
No, I really want to thank the Iron Dog board. Them guys have put a lot in there. Everybody that's supporting us and you for what you do out there. You make huge difference with the snowmobiling community completely with your show and that. It's awesome what you do.
I'm grateful for that comment. I really do appreciate it because I'll tell you, a lot of time and effort goes into these shows and what we do with it, coordinating the sponsors to give away the prizes, and it's a lot of work, but it's a passion of love, similar to you going like, why are you so crazy to go race that race? Why am I so crazy to volunteer all this time to just help perfect strangers, right?
Right.
when these perfect strangers tell me that they're signing up for an avalanche class because of something they saw on my show, or they've done something different, or people are tagging me and they're fun across the country. I mean, if somebody's snowmobiling over in Idaho and I'm nowhere nearby and they're tagging me in it because they're excited about living large or just knowing that Jon Ferrian's making a difference out there, that's what keeps me motivated every week, buddy. That's awesome.
You make a difference. I mean, the live large is a unbelievable statement for what you do. It is you.
That's awesome. I'm so grateful for friends like you and the whole community that supports the show and what we do. So, all right. Well, with that, I say everybody, don't forget to live large, right? And again, live large, if you don't know, is live life to the fullest. Make a difference out there. Make the best of every day. Live like every day like it's your last sometimes, right? Just make it happen, right?
Make a change every day. All it is that one little change every day, and after a little while, things will be great.
Yeah, be the change, be the difference. It's awesome. So, all right. Well, don't forget, again, share the show. You get out there. We're going to give away 2 prizes this week. We've got the Woody's Racing Bubba Burgers, which don't forget to follow Woody's Racing on social media. They're going through right in the middle of their snowcross race season right now, and they've got some great things going right now. And then, of course, Mr. David Wagner's thrown in one of those beautiful sweatshirts that he's wearing right now.
Let me know what the name is, and we'll have the name printed on it and ship it out to you.
Yep, sounds good. And so we'll be giving that away. All the shares for this week will be tracked, and approximately a week from now, we'll be giving it away. And again, appreciate everybody. Have a great night, and talk to you all later.
Thanks.